In this session, we're going to take a look at constructing directories directly within the repository without the need for a working copy. In order to emphasize the independence from the working copy, we're going to change our current directory to be the root of the C drive. We're going to be loading into the M03L11 repository, and a quick listing of the root of this repository reveals that we just have the trunk directory. So in this first example, we're going to use the make directory command. You'll recall that we've used the make directory command previously when working with a working copy. We can use the Subversion make directory command and specify a working copy path, in which case the directory is created in the working copy and scheduled to be added the next time we commit from that working copy. In this instance, we're using the make directory command, but we're specifying a URL directly within the repository. Because this make directory command is having an effect directly on the repository, we know that it's going to create a new revision, and as such it requires a log message. In this example, we're supplying the log message using the -m option. When the command executes, we receive confirmation that we've committed at revision 3. Looking at the history of this new branches directory that we've just created within the M03L11 repository confirms that in revision 3 we added the branches directory. And performing a list command on the root of the M03L11 directory confirms what is shown in the blue illustration area to the right, that we added branches alongside the existing trunk directory at the root of the M03L11 repository. The previous example added the branches directory to the pre-existing root of the repository. In this example, we're attempting to create several directories in a nested structure. Specifically, we're adding the sum dir structure hierarchy of directories to the branches directory that we just created. However, when we attempt to run this command, Subversion throws an error. Specifically, it informs us that we ought to try make directory with parents, and then goes on to inform us that the transaction has generally failed because the path doesn't exist. So let's repeat that make directory command, but this time specifying the parents option. You'll recall from our previous examples of make directory, when we were using a working copy, that the parents option causes the Subversion client to create any intermediate directory structures necessary to satisfy the command. This time the command completes and we see that we've created revision 4. Showing the log entry for the latest revision within the repository, we see that revision 4 has in fact recorded 3 additions: the sum directory, followed by the directory dir within the sum directory, and finally the structure directory contained within the dir directory just created. So the one make directory with the parents option has resulted in 3 addition operations within the revision. We can now use the list command with the -r or recursive option, which, as you'll recall from earlier sessions, is the equivalent of depth equals infinity, to show the structure of directories beneath the branches directory. The output of this command confirms that the directory structure has been created as intended. Using the make directory in this way is a simple way of creating simple directory structures. However, a fairly common scenario within software development is that an existing project or section of a project may exist on the file system already and consist of hundreds or possibly thousands of directories and files. Obviously, using make directory to manually create these directories would be very tiresome, and using the import command to import each individual file would be equally difficult. Fortunately, the import command is significantly more flexible than this. So we're going to show how to import a large directory structure into a repository without using a working copy. First of all, let's take a look at the contents of the trunk directory. We see that it's fairly simple, consisting of 2 directories and 2 files. Most significantly, there is no structure directory within the trunk. We're going to use this next example import command to load a directory structure straight into a repository. The first parameter following the import command itself is the path to the root of the structure that we want to import. In this case, we're going to import from the SVN Guru samples mo3l11 directory, in which we will find the structure directory, which contains a series of files and directories and subfiles and subdirectories and so on. We're going to take this entire structure and import it into the trunk directory. The second parameter is the target, and as with all import commands, the target must be fully qualified. In this case, we want the structure directory to be imported into trunk and named structure. When we execute this command, because we didn't specify any log message on the command line, and the import command will inevitably affect the repository, the Subversion client opens up our text editor and prompts us to supply the log message. As you can see, there's just one action scheduled, which is the addition of the structure directory. The import command has not yet scanned the structure to identify all the files and folders to be loaded, so the only thing it knows it's going to do is add this structure directory. So we provide a log message and save the file. The import command then continues and reports all of the actions that it's taking, and it's here that we get a report of all the files and directories which have been added as a consequence of us adding this structure to the repository. The command completes and informs us that we've created revision 5 in the repository. We can take a closer look at the results of this by showing the log entry for the latest revision within the mo3l11 repository. This log entry shows revision 5, and the change paths reveal all of the add actions that resulted as a consequence of our import command. All of the add actions confirm that a structure has been created under the trunk directory that mirrors that which was on our original file system. Again, the file system remains untouched, and the Subversion repository is updated as a consequence of the import command. We can further confirm the addition by looking at a recursive listing of the trunk. And here we see a significant expansion on the previous trunk contents, namely that all of the structure directory, its files and folders have been added to the repository. The import command can therefore be used to either add individual files, as in the previous session, or, as in this session, can be used to load large sets of files and directories in one command. It's important to note here also that the import command is subject to the ignore list mentioned in the earlier sessions. Any files which match patterns on the ignore list will not by default be imported using the import command. This can be a very important feature when loading large software structures, especially if that software directory has been used, for example, to build the system in the past. The ignore list can be used to eliminate things like object and executable files and prevent them from being imported into the repository. As with the add and status commands, the import command can also take the no ignores option. When the no ignores option is specified to the import command, it will load all the files and directories irrespective of their appearance on the ignore list.